I'm live. Well, I have to say I'm disappointed because I scheduled this for 6 o'clock and I'm sitting here waiting to see because OBS is already streaming, so I'm waiting to see, is it going to automatically just start streaming? And I thought it did the other day, but we passed 6 o'clock and it didn't. It still wanted me to go live. Now there's an option on YouTube Studio to auto start. Just checking this. So anyway, yeah, I won't waste you good people's time with this, but yeah, I was kind of thinking it was going to launch automatically and it didn't. So poor me, I had to click a button. Well, what are we doing? Let me see here. Concurrent viewers appears to be 1. Okay, so maybe that's me monitoring it, and maybe that's you, whoever you might be. I have my tasty beverage, which is a martini, a dirty martini, no ice. Dirty meaning olive juice, 1 olive. It's a jalapeno stuffed olive. Drinking this martini in honor of the late, great Phil Martin, my ex-father-in-law, who taught me how to make a martini. A very good man and a good friend who recently passed away from, yes, COVID-19. So, anyway, here's to you, Phil. Drink one in your honor. Well, it's been no secret lately, as you can actually see behind me, if I point back there at the painting, you can see that I've been painting. And actually, I probably should stay on this screen right here. So the other day, Kyle says to me, I say, Kyle, what should I paint? Who should I paint? He says, paint Michelle. So I paint Michelle. Now I don't know how well I succeeded, but my Michelle looks more like a cross between Michelle and maybe Marilyn McCoo. Okay, so in the interest of being, politically fair and balanced, I then decided to do this one. And it didn't quite, the likeness just wasn't quite there, and I've actually gone back to it twice to do some tweaks, but it's certainly been, doing the watercolor paintings has definitely been a bit of an adventure. It's very difficult. Watercolor is very, very touchy. And my sense is that after doing a bunch of watercolors, if I go back and do oils or acrylics, it's going to be like complete cake, like easy peasy. So anyway, here's what we're doing tonight. Don't know how long I'm going to stream. I'm hoping to get focused here and probably hit it hard for an hour. So, but we'll see. So earlier, I did this shot, and actually, then I was working on this shot. This shot definitely was a challenge, had some problems, but now that I've kind of fiddled with the timing a bit and looked at how it's coming together, it actually, I think, is editorially just fine. There he goes. And so now what we're going to do is let's get her action into shape, okay? And that is going to be a bit of work. So I'm going to be checking the chat here and there, but what I really want to do more than anything is lean in and focus. Okay, so this is going to be Tianara, and on her layer we want to go ahead and control insert, put a keyframe. So what I did was I covered the background up with just a layer of white, and then this is what we were working with, and I decided that it's just, by blowing it up, it's just too harsh, too bold. That's not really the right word, but you can see what I mean. It needs to be redrawn and re-inked, which is just as well because, frankly, she's got to be animated anyway. So, so job one is to go ahead and redraw Tianara with ink, quote unquote, that is a little more appropriate to the scale that she is drawn at here. So let's rock and roll and get that in here first. And then I'll steal my color from the prior version of it that was at a lower res because she was so small in the frame. Okay. So, and I'm thinking what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and put her hand on a different layer. Now, I guess, okay, so here's the lesson or the takeaway from the session I did earlier. It's a lesson I've learned quite a few times, but I seem to have to always relearn it, which is that if something's got to be animated, by gum, do a pencil test and really do, you know, rough it in before you try to animate. Because what happens is you wind up doing puppet animation like I did on Balder. And honestly, if I would have, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think if I would have just drawn him, just done a pencil test of his walk by, it actually would have been quicker. I don't know that it would have been better because I actually think it did come out just fine, but it probably wouldn't have taken so long. So in other words, the takeaway is that trying to fix something that's not quite working usually takes longer than just redoing it from scratch. So actually, I was going to put her hand on a different layer, but I think what I'm going to do here is just, while this is certainly, you know, finished ink, so to speak, from this point forward, I'm going to go ahead and do a proper pencil test on her. So with that, I will leave this layer in there just because it's going to be my color key. Okay? So what happens is Balder walks by and boom, right there, I would say, I'm hitting GE so I can erase. So this is, honestly, if I was watching someone else's YouTube channel, this is probably the part, this is the kind of stuff that I would enjoy the most watching, which is just the actual grunt work of animation. It's a beautiful thing, I tell you. And, you know, I reserve the right to have mistakes. Okay, yeah, there's one. Didn't take long. Didn't take long. Boom, 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 boom. That's better. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Boo, 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 boo. Boo, 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 boo. So what I want to do is have TNR's eye follow Balder. Let's see if that worked. Okay, I'm going to keep going with this. I'm just going to go ahead with straight ahead animation and just see how it goes. We'll worry about the little thing on her head, the little red dot, later. At the ink and paint stage. Okay. Okay, this is where it's going to get interesting. Okay, what I would say is, first of all, let's just simply get rid of her hand, her arm, because it's going to wind up being animated separately anyway. So let's just get rid of it. Okay? Now, and let's get rid of anything that provides connective tissue between the stuff that is animated and the stuff that isn't. So there's that. Now I have a choice to make. Do I want to chop it into another layer or not? It would probably be prudent to do so. So I'm going to go Control X, Control V. And Krita has done me the probably that's okay. So now what I'm not going to do is remember our ink, our color can be on a separate layer. So therefore, if there's stuff in the layer and I, plan ahead reasonably, I can go ahead and color her and let the color ride underneath until the head moves, and then point being that the head and the body are probably going to be baked back together. But for now, we'll leave them separately, or separate, I should say. Okay, so I'm going to go boom, boom. Okay, so here, and we'll see how her head stretches out a bit here. Okay, G. Whoops, that's supposed to be in erase mode, silly. Okay, I know this looks funky right now. Okay, let's grab the body, and I would say in the bod layer, let's grab this stuff, maybe cut it right there, and then here, like I said, okay, really, dude? Okay, that's where Krita's ticking me off a bit, because I had shifted layers, but it didn't take, so to speak. Okay, and then just because I'm here and thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and take that out, and we'll just sort of connect this up here in a bit. But let's save our work, and if I do this correctly, connecting it all up is going to be, it's going to be easy. And then later all I have to do is deal with her face. So here's her head. So let's take that out. Oh, come on. I keep thinking I hit erase mode. Okay. Head. Boom. Okay. Let's get this. I like that. TNR's got some spunk. And let's grab this and maybe crunch it in just a little bit more. Okay. Now let's compare to this. Okay, I think that's going to work. So Balder walks by. Okay, now it's tempting to keep going and sort of extend the animation here a bit, but there's no point, because I know that when it's time to edit, she's going to no sooner stick her tongue out, and we're going to want to cut to this shot. In this shot, he will come into frame this way and then stop and turn around and look back. And then we have her in the foreground in silhouette, which will work out pretty well. Okay, so now it's patch time. Oh yeah. Okay, one more thing actually. I am going to, yes, I'm going to call this arm. I'm going to go ahead and put a layer here. And right there, add a key. And I'm going to kind of sketch this in a little bit. Let's just insert a keyframe so I can. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hope this kind of sort of makes sense. I think that works. Let's see. Well, it's one of the magical things about drawing. It really is when you can just put in a couple little lines like that, and in your mind you can see it. You can't always, but I find that the more of this I do, and especially the more I've actually been doing painting, the more I find I'm able to, you know, really see it in my mind. And I also find that it's quite helpful to, like what I'm doing here where I'm drawing things that aren't actually connected, I actually find to be quite useful. It's kind of like I always say about working from the known to the unknown. You know, if I know a finger's going to go out here, let's say like that, then I don't have to draw all the connections. In fact, it's actually better if I don't, in terms of, you know, winding up doing an accurate drawing. So I want to have this more scrunched here, but maybe starting to come apart a little bit. And that's actually going to be behind her head. I think maybe I'm drawing her hand too large here. Can't have that. Can't be getting our scale out of whack. That's better. Okay, boom, 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 boom. No particular reason for the way her hand is expressing itself, I guess. I'm just looking for something that's going to flow okay. Boom. It's a little skinny maybe, but again, by having the lines separate, I can just make an adjustment, and I'll just connect it up here in a bit, so no big deal. Checking the messages, there are none. Cool beans. Boom. Okay. Okay, it looks to me like her garment is, at least on this arm, it's kind of above the elbow. Okay, that sucked. Let's just call it what it is. That sucked. Let's just call it like it is. Okay, we'll just kind of do that. Crunch your arm a bit like that. I think that's okay for that particular frame. Obviously, it's only on the screen for one frame, so we have a little bit of latitude. This is not working. Boom. I mean, obviously, the whole point here is just to get her hand the heck out of there, so. This I really don't like. But I think what I'll do is actually grab it like this. And just kind of move it a bit. Like so. Okay. Now I sound like somebody who isn't me. Now I sound like my grandma. My grandma Old Grandma Baker was, she had a funny way of saying some words. Okay, we can see a definite problem here. So let's just hit GE and let's just erase this. Let's not, again, let's not fight it and try to make something work that's not working. Let's just get rid of the stuff that's not working, because it'll be much easier to just redraw it. Okay. And I would say we probably should maybe adjust that line as well. Okay, so there we go. Let's go back here and see what our initial position is. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so obviously we've got a little bit of a business here to take care of. And what I was saying earlier about gluing the layers back together, baking them back together, is that once I'm going in this, technically you could call this a pencil test, but it's pretty close to ink. I mean, I'm going to be able to go ahead and ink this and it'll be fine. So when I'm working this way, there are multiple layers, but I do reach a point where I really don't care what layer I'm working in, because I know I'm just going to glue them together once all the motion's happening anyway. So the only reason to have separate layers is because you have some things that extend under. Hey, Ajax, or if I'm saying that right. I'm back like the Terminator. Man, ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth? And I'm just wanting to get a little extra work done. Kind of using live streaming as a bit of a crutch to enforce some discipline, I suppose, which is not a bad thing. I'll go ahead and bake all the ink together. Perfect. The only caveat being maybe, and I'm going to go ahead and bake them together right now. So, okay, so I'm just hitting Control E, 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 and yeah, that takes care of her. So the only question, I suppose, is on the tongue, do we want to do a, what do they call them, kind of a strawberry kind of thing? Which would be to go here. Probably the best way to do it, kind of anime style, is to erase it, but then because we have the onion skin, if I just trace it, I'm going to get a slight variation on it, like that, and then we'll just see if this works. I'll probably go with it, and then, but I'll take these keys back out because it doesn't make sense to repeat them until after the paint's done. So, nah, that doesn't work. I didn't like that. So that's fine. Well, like I said, editing wise, probably once she sticks her tongue out, it's going to be like, boom, cut. You know, you're going to have, yeah, maybe 40 frames on this shot. So which shot is this? This is 283. Let's double check this. Yeah, that's 81. That's 83. Okay. So let's save our work. All right, checking the messages. Helped me to get a lot done over the past 2 years, but I need to increase that double time to get what I need to get done. Yeah. Well, there's no. Yeah, but I don't know if that's really what I want for Tianara. I mean, she's kind of a dainty little girl. Yeah, I think I'm gonna, in this case, there's times when I would definitely do that, but I think for this I'm gonna just go with that. So I really like the way the shot's looking, though, without a doubt. Oh, I see, that's looping. Sorry. Hello, Krita, don't be acting stupid. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think the action's good. It's all appropriate to what I was after for the shot. So let's just get the coloring done. And in this case, let's just say this paint layer, I'm going to leave the white in there for now just because it keeps things from being too, you know, so I can see what I'm doing. But I think I really need to put her in a group. So let's do it this way. Let's pull that down, and then this will be the Tia group. Okay? So what we will do is just add a color group. Normally I would pretty much color her on the same layer, but in this case we've got too many pieces that are going to run under the whole thing without being changed, and it doesn't make sense to keep painting it over and over. So let's start with this. So for lack of a better idea, I'm just going to start with her garment. Actually, I want to check one thing. Okay, so that's going to be the same color as that. So hit an insert a key, and let's hit the G key and just get this in here. And this is obviously in curve mode, which is always stupid, not usually what I want at all. But let's go fill and fill. Okay, so now we definitely see a bit of a problem. Let me look at this. Yeah. Well, you know, the good news is we can, by leaving her lines on a different layer, we can make adjustments. And I'm going to show you guys right now, actually. Okay, I'm going to look at Amar's comments, and then I'll show you something that's actually quite useful. Okay, I've been wanting to ask this question for the longest time. Why don't you do the full pencil test animation, and then once the pencil test is done, and then you can ink and paint it? That's a fair question. I'm actually evolving more in that direction. That's why, that's quite specifically why. The other day, let me answer it this way, Amar. I've got a couple years of dinking around with trying different software, different techniques, different methodologies that I thought would work better. You know, there were some approaches on the anime thing that were different on this project, back and forth, try this, try that, blah, blah, blah. As of recently, only really recently, in December for sure, I reached a point where I said, you know what, I'm happy. I've got a workflow I'm happy with, things are moving along, and the show is looking good. And I don't know if I can really emphasize this enough. If I wasn't happy with it where I could watch this and find it entertaining myself, I have a hard time, you know, saying that you're going to like it, right? It really has to, I'm not claiming that this is the highest standard of animation or characterization or anything, but in terms of what I'm trying to do for the audience I'm trying to do it for, it's working. And the work method is working. Having said that, the reason I said that is because it's only been in the last month where I've said to myself, you know what? If I did what Amar just said, this thing, I'm at the place where I may even want to divert to doing the soundtrack, maybe even sound effects and music in parallel with the animation stuff. So the other day, literally just a few days ago, I took the entire storyboard and laid it into the shot or into the show. And what I've actually been doing from this point around here onward, so about the last couple weeks, is preference. I do prefer to finish as I go, but that's becoming, it isn't like one finished shot, then the next finished shot, then the next finished shot, the way I was doing it. And it's hard to explain why the process of working out the working methodology factored into that, because it, on the face of it, it wouldn't probably seem to make sense, but for me, it did make sense. So it's a convoluted explanation, I know, but the long and the short of it is that at this point, I'm doing precisely what you're describing. I am leaving stuff in pencil test more often, but it's kind of like, kind of doing a back and forth kind of thing. So we'll leave it at that for the moment. Okay, so what I was going to say, just for your enrichment, folks, is that you can, if I hit the G key, let's say I sampled this color. Okay, but then I go ahead and go a notch lighter. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, come on. Krita's acting stupid now all of a sudden. What's going on here? I clicked the wrong thing and now, oh, I see what's going on. Krita's literally down here off the screen. This is bizarre. Actually, what's going on is, I've seen this happen one other time in 2 years. Krita is behind the taskbar. Isn't that stupid? Have you ever seen anything so amazingly stupid in your life? That's pretty close to the limit of stupidity, but there it is. Okay, and all that happened for the simple reason that when you pop up this, whatever you want to call it, if you're a Blender person, you'll call it a pie menu, is that you can't get the damn thing to go away unless you click somewhere. I wish I could just hit escape and have it go away. But what I was trying to show is this. Here's the ink. Yes. By turning on alpha lock, I can actually selectively color the ink. That's all I was trying to show you guys. So that for this shot, it may be useful to go in and actually color this interior ink. I'm not going to do it now. I'm just going to go ahead and get things colored at this point, and then we'll cross that bridge a little bit later. So looks like, yeah, what we've got here is on the color layer, G key again. We got to add this. So, Amar, I think, oh, stupid. If I was doing the whole thing over from scratch, I probably would favor getting the whole, kind of doing it more the Hollywood standard way. Get the whole thing blocked in as first a storyboard, then an animatic, then a pencil test, and you know. So it is what it is. All right, so now I gotta go like that, and now we can hit the old fill tool. So I hope that answered your question. It's almost like shooting your full movie first, then to the post edit and adding the final edits. It would be the same. Yes and no. Having written and edited and directed 8 movies, I can tell you that you're correct in principle, but in practice what happens is the stuff does tend to carry forth in tandem. Because you get into starting with editing when the movie's still being shot. Not to a great large degree, but before I join your stream, I never animated and created, animated and created, notice that it has to be auto key. Yeah. Yeah, if you just go to a frame, you move forward to another frame and start drawing, it just adds another. It's definitely useful for things like straight ahead animation, where something's growing or moving over time, and you just move it a little bit and it automatically inserts the keyframes. It's definitely useful. Okay, so let's just see. Okay, so right here, actually I can leave that. I can zap over that with the flesh tone. So the part where it really is going to kind of start to fall apart would be right here. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a key and do that one over. So I'm having to kind of balance my plan here out just a little bit insofar as the color work goes. G, we're not going to be working in behind mode because Yeah, because since we're in a separate layer, we don't need to be in behind mode. So let me just do it this way. Actually, I want the G key. And so anyway, because it's not behind mode, I can just add the white in over the eyes and it'll just work. So hope that makes sense, folks. And additionally, I can, of course, do a certain amount of cleanup on the ink/pencil test any old time as well. So, you know, if I'm the big animation mentor, I'm gonna tell you keep things on separate layers. Okay. Do I do it that way myself all the time? No. I often find myself, just for the fun of it, trying to keep everything concisely in a single layer, but that's just a bizarre conceit of mine. There's no really good reason to do that, truthfully. So, okay. And now I'm going to hit the E key, and I'm just going to erase all this, and we're just going to recolor that. Whoops. We're just going to recolor it. Boom, boom, boom. Frankly, that needs to be fixed as well, so. I think the bottom line is that once things are moving a lot, like what you have here, you know, once there's a bunch of animation going on, it's almost like the working method doesn't really matter that much because there's no getting, you know, there really is no shortcut. One could argue in some cases that puppet style animation where you rig things up is a shortcut, but it's a shortcut for which you typically pay a high price at the start, and whether the aggregate time required is less or more, I think depends. Certainly in the long run, a puppet-based or rigged animation approach is definitely more efficient in the long run if you're going to do the whole show that way. But that's kind of predicated on the idea that you're creating a rig that you're literally going to use through the whole show. So it works well for shows that, you know, embrace the approach of having, you know, a character mostly in 3/4 view through the whole show, which obviously there's massively popular shows like Family Guy that do just that. So Family Guy, Simpsons, blah blah blah. Futurama, maybe The Simpsons too, actually, since they're both groaning programs, but maybe I would say they're probably getting less leverage than the I'm having a brain fart on the creator of American Dad and Family Guy. Why I'm having a brain fart on him at the moment, I don't know. But anyway, his shows do a lot of, you know, everything's in 3/4 view, whereas the groaning shows, graining, not sure really how he pronounces it, as evidenced, by the way, by Futurama, since I've messed around with Futurama, obviously. There's a greater variety of angles, and I think getting real leverage on, you know, through rigging is probably less likely on a show like that. But it's all opinion. Seth MacFarlane, yes, thank you. Thank you. Huh. MacFarlane? Yeah, it might be. I don't know. Not really much of a student of that guy and his career or whatever. I remember when he did the monologue on the Oscars, and he actually, I thought, did a pretty good job of writing the monologue. You know, he's definitely a pretty funny guy. Okay, let's just insert another key here. And obviously there's whoopsie poo. Got a little boo-boo there. What I was going to say is there's really no shortcut. So you know, if I was watching somebody's YouTube channel, without a doubt, Ink and Paint would probably not be as interesting as watching the generation of a pencil test and, you know, just the animation part. But my shtick is that this is reality. The reality is this is what you have to do if you're really going to create a show. You've got to. It's a lot of grunt work. Okay, I'm actually going to go into behind mode now so that I can just have less chance of accidentally stepping on her beautiful face. So I can just kind of go like that. Here, probably a sliver actually would be okay. And then maybe we'll just put this little blab right in there. Oh, Groening did. Okay. Yeah, well, I remember, gosh, I remember actually, I think when I was in high school, or at least college, so this would have been the 80s, I remember when Matt Groening was, you know, he was quite a figure in underground comics, really. In that goofy way that he draws his character. Well, obviously, because, well, it must have been in the 80s because The Simpsons started on the Live. I'm sorry. I'm mixing up my names. Tracy Ullman. It's because her name's Ullman. There used to be an actress named Liv Ullman, so I got it mixed up. But so yeah, the Tracy Ullman show, which was one of the early shows on Fox in the late 80s, and The Simpsons was a little animated featurette on the Tracy Ullman show. That's where it got its start, and it was so popular as a little featurette add-on to a live-action sitcom show that they went ahead and, you know, gave him his own show. And then lo and behold, it becomes the longest-running show in the history of television, as far as I can tell on it. It's really amazing, the shelf life. Really amazing. And I have no idea if the, you know, I don't know if the writing is still as good as it used to be, or, you know, probably people have opinions about that, I guess. Fill that. Let's hit the G key. Just close that gap right there. And then, whoops, that didn't work. More G key. Like that. Now the F key. Fill that. Okay. Let's hit the 5 key, straighten this up a bit, and see what we've got. Okay. Yes, it did. I remember he did a comic strip, if I'm remembering correctly, in The Reader. That show should have made him a billionaire, especially with licensing. If it's yeah, I don't think Matt Groening is hurting. Gotta eat my olive. So that one, I think we can do it the easy way. There we go. Sorry for chewing in your ear, guys. Okay, got all the flesh tone in there. All right, let's grab the blue color. And then what else is there? Just the hair, I guess. So let's do it this way. Turn this off, hit the G key, and then we're already in behind mode, so that means I can go like that. And that'll be pretty quick and easy to go get that all in there. Cake. Okay, so now the question becomes, what about the headdress, etc.? So, yeah, I mean, somewhat of a strategic error, perhaps. But we'll compensate with shadows. So, fill. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's not going to work. Not only did we have a leak, but also covered up her hair. Yep, there's the leak right there. So, G key, boom, boom. Now we can fill it. Okay. Let's go forward to this one, and let's just do the same thing again. We'll just kind of patch our holes here with the G key. I would say probably that. This, that's all just going to be filled in. We can be a little loosey-goosey on this stuff because it's all going by very quickly. One frame is all. So if it's a little bit sloppy, it actually quite literally does not matter. Those little gaps are like I said, they just don't matter because it's only going to be on the screen for one frame. It's kind of like motion blur, you know. Is motion blur a problem, or is motion blur aesthetically pleasing? Depends. Usually it's pleasing. Okay. And we're definitely going to be going hog wild on the shadow work here. What I was saying about a strategic error is that having the headdress... Yeah, really, this does not make sense, actually. Let's stop right here. Yeah, this does not make sense. I've definitely made a mistake. What is the mistake? The mistake is this. This is stupid. This, let's get out of behind mode. This is nuts. Of course, this needs to be the color of the rest of the garment. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? I just don't know what I was thinking, people. Why did you let me make such a silly mistake? It's all your fault. Your fault. Not mine. Yeah. Seinfeld. Oh, you're talking about groaning now. Yeah, yeah, Disenchantment, as far as I'm concerned, was a complete failure. It might be successful financially and it may be popular, I don't know, but I thought it was utterly worthless as a show. Just because all they were doing, in my view, was recycling the same tired jokes that you've already seen a million times on The Simpsons and Futurama. There was just nothing fresh or different or clever or fun about it for me. I found it literally boring. And not only that, just the pure writing wasn't that good. So I sat through one or two episodes, and I think I laughed like one time in the whole episode. So I'm like, yeah, their quality of writing is kind of suffering a bit here. And the quality of the writing means everything, man. That's why I really like and respect good writers. That's why I like Aaron Ehash. I mean, I don't know that the Dragon Prince is necessarily the greatest thing ever. Most people's complaints about it, though, have to do with technical stuff and the aesthetics of the animation, especially from season one. But Aaron Ehash, what a talented guy. I mean, he was involved with. I think he was the main writer, essentially the showrunner on Avatar: The Last Airbender. He cut his teeth on Futurama. Super talented guy. So yeah, I got a place in my heart for the writers. because television is ruled by writers. In the same sense that Hollywood is ruled by directors, the television medium is all about the writers. A director is just a grunt job, essentially, in television. If you're a director, there's nothing really particularly special about it. I mean, it's cool and everything, but it's not a position of power. You know, in Hollywood with movies, whoever's the director pretty much is the CEO of the movie enterprise, if you will. In television, it's the head writer who's the creator of the show and typically has say so, which I think is how it should be. But a little known fact about the entertainment industry that people don't realize is that the television industry is and has always been an order of magnitude bigger than the film industry. You know, young people are always attracted to film. Truthfully, you want to have a steady career, get into television, man. And by the way, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I could make another film, especially if I made another chick flick horse movie. It would do well. It would do okay. But I kind of decided some time ago that yeah, I'm going to say okay, that is coming soon on Netflix, or it may already be on Netflix. I don't know what you're referring to is what coming soon on Netflix. So what I was saying is that I made the command decision that I was going to it makes way more sense to develop a show. If you can develop and actually deliver a show, you can really, you know, you've at least got the possibility to sort of build up a franchise and you know, build a career and or sort of a bit of a transmedia you know, a little mini empire around that property, you know. So, and that's a good thing. Good thing to do. Okay, so I click and nothing happens. Really? Really? Okay, now I need to go G, A, and then darken it a little bit. And then I'll come back and catch the green in her eyes. So, yeah, any young person, I would tell them, you know what, if you want to make a movie. Okay, we've reconnected. Okay, so what I was trying to say before I was so rudely interrupted is that the advantage of film is that you can do a project and you do it and it's done. That's it. Which I suppose is also the disadvantage, because if you look at the marketplace, I mean, what does the marketplace want? Clearly, what the marketplace wants is series, TV shows, so to speak. They're not obviously on TV all the time anymore, but that is essentially what the market wants. People want to binge watch shows. And the cool thing is they want to get on board with and get emotionally connected with the characters and all the rest, you know, all that goes with that. So that's a cool thing. Hence, for my purposes, I see way more opportunity and good sense to creating a show more than movies anymore. Movies are kind of yesterday for me, truth be known. Oh, I see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah, we got to make a little adjustment on the color. Yes, and that's because actually what I need to do is just turn this off, go back here, and now just hit the G key and just cover all this up. Whoops, I hit the wrong key. Probably should save my work. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Still in solo mode there. Alright, I think that fixed it. Yeah, it did. Except that now I've got to go in and color her eyes again. So I kind of goofed here. Let me move this color back here. That doesn't work. Boy, this is... Okay, stop. I'm going to hit undo a couple times. Positively frenetic. Alright. G key. Boom and boom. Okay. Yep. So hopefully this will not backfire. We are at risk of introducing chatter here. But actually, you know what? I know how I can fix that, come to think of it. What I'm actually going to do now is get rid of those keys. Yep, there we go. Now I do need to recreate them, but I won't have the chatter from the eyes being slightly different from frame to frame. So now let me grab the green of her eyes and okay, except it didn't work. Yep, there we go, we got it. I'm definitely having a little bit of that experience where you're smacking around hitting hotkeys and really moving quickly, and okay, sorry, my bad. Again, this is where, you know, you have a choice. Do you want to have 50,000 trillion billion zillion layers, or do you want to plan ahead and think about what you're doing? So in my case, what I need to do is go ahead and hit Control Insert, Control Insert, Control Insert. So I'm duplicating the key because this actually requires 4 different keys, but the only thing that changes is the irises of her eyes. So what I was saying is I'm moving really, really fast, and I'm finding that stuff's just not happening. Like I sample the color, but then it doesn't actually pick up the color and stuff like that. So that's true with any software, though. If you get really moving too fast, it tends to be that way. Okay, let's pull back here. How are we doing on time? Whoa, is that right? Oh, no, that's not right. I started at 6 o'clock, so I've been going for an hour. No big deal. All right, so I'm going to look here. Okay, I'm gonna give you some real world information here, Amar, that may help you so that you're not basically talking out your ass. You're right that syndication is where the money is, but you must understand syndication does not happen until a show has 100 episodes, which typically on a normal weekly traditional schedule means you've got to have 5 years. You have to successfully get your show renewed for 5 years before you really are going to have a syndication opportunity. And then it's what's called a strip. You've got enough episodes where you can run one episode every night of the week through a 13-week season, or, you know, do the numbers. 5 times. So that's 20 weeks. So you're basically getting half a year. You're getting half a year. Pennsylvania. I never really watched that. Okay, so the way to get around the syndication problem that I just described in terms of getting to the place where you can have that opportunity is to do something that's really cheap to do. So you're talking game shows, you're talking reality shows. You know, that's where you can get some leverage. And potentially. And even, you can create something. Actually, there's a whole story about this with Filmation about what actually happened with He-Man and Masters of the Universe back in the 80s. Because this is actually what happened is Filmation was quite successful with Saturday morning cartoons, and Saturday morning cartoons were already starting to go. And it was pretty clear that syndication was where the opportunity was. But the challenge was that in order to create a first-run syndication show, in other words, the show never showed anywhere except in syndication, they had to create like 100 episodes in advance. I mean, I don't know if they had to create 100, but they had to create a lot. I mean, it was not like a normal show schedule. It was an extremely aggressive schedule. And there's actually a really good book. They have it at the library here in Fort Wayne, but really good book on the whole history of Filmation, and there's a couple good documentaries right here on YouTube about Filmation as well. Really, really interesting study, that company, because of all of their ups and downs, and they kept the animation here in the United States when everybody else was farming it out to other countries. Quite a respectable company with a very impressive history. Let's see here. So I'm going to go ahead and smack that on there. It looks to me like I need to do the old alpha lock thing. I don't think this is quite dark enough though. Yeah, let's do it like that. So, yeah, I wasn't trying to be snarky about the syndication thing. It's just, syndication is a really, really, really tough racket, because not only do you have to do an incredible amount of production just to have something you can sell, but then you have to go sell it. You have to go successfully sell it. And it's kind of gone in fits and starts over the years, where there were periods of time where all of a sudden syndication became a huge opportunity, and then of course everybody saw the huge opportunity and kind of jumped on board, and then you had a glut of content, and then it became harder to sell a show and actually make it profitable with syndication. So I tell you what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit Control Insert, make a duplicate, and then go in here and kind of... Okay, yeah, so really this whole hand should actually be in shadow, honestly. Maybe not. Maybe not. Strike that. I reserve the right to be stupid. Okay. Well, yeah, if you can get a syndication deal, you're going to be definitely having a party to celebrate, because there is definitely a lot of money to be made in syndication. But then again, it just depends on what you can sell too. The challenge from to me, syndication is almost more of a sales job than a production job, because if I wanted to be involved in syndication, I would probably, if I wanted to personally be involved with it, I'd be looking at it very much from the standpoint of, you might as well just find somebody else's show and just focus on the sales, because that's going to be an absolute full-time job. Because typically, at least traditionally, you've got to actually go and sell it market by market. So you have to find your local station there in Chicago that needs something that they can air, from 5:30 to 6 o'clock before the news, kind of thing. And even, that may even be changing to a degree, because television is changing so much right now. But they just want something cheap that they can fill up that half hour with before the more established 7 to 8 o'clock syndicated properties are going to run, and then of course you got your primetime network content. So it seems to me to be a bit of a tough racket, because you've got really established properties in syndication as well that you sort of have to compete with, like Star Trek. So if you're a local station, are you going to buy Star Trek, or are you going to buy Amar's reality show. It probably just depends on your budget. It depends on the price, and you sort of have to weigh out what your advertising revenue that you think you're going to be able to swing for Star Trek versus Amar's reality show. And then of course there's the fact that in the syndication realm, then of course that station or that TV station is also competing with the other stations in the market who maybe they want to buy Star Trek. Now it's not unheard of, I must say, to have the same syndicated show on multiple stations. I'm a bit embarrassed to admit that when I was a kid, I really liked the show Happy Days, which when I go back and watch it now, it's like, oh man, the writing was not that good. Okay. But I remember I thought it was so cool at one point in the 80s when, just because of syndication, it had gotten to a point where I could watch Happy Days 3 times on the same day. Just because it was a really popular show, or had been, and so a lot of stations wanted it to fill up some of their syndicated time, maybe at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. And so yeah, there was a brief shining period of time there where I could watch Happy Days 3 times in a single day. Crazy, man. Memories of the 80s. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Crazy how that works. But I'll say this, the opportunity to be involved with media as a creator is greater now. But the dollars are smaller, right? So my chick flick horse movie that at this point basically earns about $500 a month in royalties. 6 years ago would have made because the movie that it was a sequel of did. The movie that it was a sequel of made $1 million at retail. The sequel will never make anywhere close to that. Not because it's a worse movie. In fact, it's pretty easy to make the case that it's a better movie. But the problem is that the market is just not, the dollars in that retail sector were huge compared to what you can get with streaming and whatnot. So that's the bad news. But the good news for a young creator who doesn't necessarily have to make as much money necessarily and is trying to carve out their career or whatever, the good news is that there's more opportunity. It's just that the dollars are smaller, that's all. So it is what it is. Apparently YouTube is a viable platform for just, competing with Amazon or whatever, because the distributor that handles my movies literally has all of their films that they distribute here on YouTube. You can watch my movies for free on YouTube. Because they've just put them out there, and apparently, the one movie's got 1 million views. I think it's probably close. They did the same with Lucille Ball. Oh yeah, I remember seeing. Oh brother, I Love Lucy was always on somewhere in syndication. Again, I think it's going to be quicker to just get rid of all this. Okay, that was not what I intended to do. I never liked the other Lucy shows, like Here's Lucy. Again, comes down to writing. I don't think that those shows were as good. I Love Lucy was a very good show. Well written, very funny. Not 100%, but nobody bats 1,000. want to move a little quicker here just because I'm losing my feel a bit by being so choppy with it. Don't know if that makes sense, but okay. And then let's go ahead and add just a little bit of a bit there. So yeah, we obviously have a glitch right there on this layer. So let's hit the E key. Go ahead and come back in. Nail that. Keep it simple, baby. Keep it simple. Okay, I think we are pretty close to Dunsville on this thing. So I'm going to hit File, Save. Dave's reality show. Well, I mean, basically, this is Dave's reality show. What you're seeing right now is Dave's reality show. I have no interest in doing reality shows. And frankly, if I wanted to do a reality show, let's just say the opportunity to do it was definitely there somewhat recently, because the guy who is the best long distance sniper marksman on the planet, he's this last year hit a target at, I believe they might have gotten close to 3 miles. Has been toying with the thing. You know, I was kind of consulting with him and frankly recommending to him that based on his vision, I'm like, I don't think you really want to even try to do a reality show. I think what you want to do is create a like a one-off show on military ballistics and you know, sniping, if you will, distance shooting, for like the military channel, something like that. And he kind of worked out a deal with some guys in his hometown that were kind of up for doing it, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And it all seems to have come to nothing, but not totally shocking. I mean, it's a big job, reality shows. Big job for a form of content that, at least for me, I have absolutely no interest in. I don't watch reality shows. You'd think I'd watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians, since I actually hung out with Bruce Jenner once for about 4 days. But no. No. In fact, that's all he talked about. That's all he talked about was all his daughter's houses, you know, how much his daughter's houses cost and things like that. Seemed like a nice guy. Okay, you know, nice guy, but at the time you could tell he had some things that were haunting him, which we all know now, was that he was sneaking out in the middle of the night and dressing up like a girl because he wanted to be a girl. And I'm not criticizing that. To quote Seinfeld, nothing wrong with that. But I've never watched that show. Never even one time. Me neither. Made more money. Me neither. I was shooting the jokey. The worst thing in society. Definitely. Oh, yeah. Well, but the bottom line, but that's not the driver. The reason the driver is that it's cheap. That's the driver. 100% with reality television is it's so cheap to produce compared to scripted shows. Now, for me personally, as a guy that's made a reasonably successful film that literally cost me $8,000 out of pocket to make, like that was my total cost. I see it differently. I think that scripted content can be as cheap as reality because I know how to edit. I'm a very good editor, and I know that when you have 100 hours of content and you have to wade through it and you have to edit that together and try to cobble that into some sort of narrative, oh my gosh. To me, I mean, I would want to claw out my own eyeballs rather than do it, you know, to be fair. But I just, in my opinion, reality shows are way less fun and way more work. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. That's my opinion. I have kind of strong opinions about it though, just because, just because I have been involved in the media space for quite a lot of years now. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and key this. I'm almost done, but I think we'll leave that in shadow. And here we'll just, this is where you were talking about it automatically adding keyframes. I can just go like this, and it goes ahead and amends it for me. And in this case, it happens to work. There's not stuff that I have to chisel back out of it. So that kind of, I guess a little bit, actually right there. There's a little hiccup. So, but I mean, if I wanted to be making movies, I'd be making movies. If I wanted to be making live action shows or reality shows, I'd be making them. I just basically don't have the interest anymore. Been there, done that with the movie thing, and I say it can be reasonably lucrative if you write and produce to the market. It's just, to me, it's just not interesting anymore, really. Doing a cartoon is what's interesting. So that's that. Yeah, not on the same level, the A level. Well, I mean, the thing about it is that if I understand you, the A level is really controlled by the studios anyway. Okay, so this is actually the I'm not gonna go try to find it right now, but there was a YouTube channel. There's a YouTube channel called Film Courage. Film Courage. Where they give very good, very practical, very real world advice about how the industry really works. It's a really good channel, great interviews. And what you're kind of touching on, they were talking about in this video I was watching just recently. But long story short is that the studios really control the A game. You're not going to compete with the A game. I think this is working. But because the market is so massively huge, I mean, let's face it, I mean, even the studios have had to completely rethink their, look at that, that worked out perfectly. Even the studios have had to rethink their game. I mean, obviously, your Marvels and your Star Wars franchises, they're all creating shows now. Because they get it. I mean, with COVID-19, obviously, theaters are dead. But it was even before that. They realized, look, binge TV watching is what people want to do. They're not going to the theaters. So the movie thing is kind of dead. I'm satisfied. I'm actually quite satisfied. So what did I do today? I knocked about 8 seconds. A little over 8 seconds out. That's not too shabby. Not great, but not horrible. We'll just watch it one more time. What do you think, Amar? Look okay? Yes, the one on pitching to Netflix with Jeff Devereaux or something. Really, really good video. The stuff about pitching to Netflix wasn't actually that useful because he's correct that just getting an audience with Netflix is next to impossible right now. And I know that because my distributors have wanted to pitch to Netflix and they can't find somebody they can't get a door cracked to even pitch to them. So it is what it is, But there's plenty of other places. I think that this is my thought. I guess I'll kind of end with this tonight. I could be wrong about this, but this is what I think. When I look at my goofy little cartoon show, my sense is that if it's good, and I think this is true, if it's good, you will find your audience. Conversely, if you don't find your audience and you can't turn it into some sort of reasonable revenue source, I hate to tell you, but it's probably because it's just not that good. That's the truth. The truth of the matter is that good content, the market is so huge right now that if the content is reasonably good, there's going to be some place where you're going to be able to put it. And if you self-distribute and go through the hassle of creating all the deliverables for your Tubi and your Pluto.tv and of course Amazon and blah blah blah, then you can probably craft any reasonably good content into a reasonably good revenue. Now that might only mean a few $100s a month, let's say. And you can make the case that you could do that just as easily by just really cultivating your YouTube channel. Do what Darren T's doing, where you're doing you're doing your Patreon thing, you're doing a little course that you're teaching, and you can kind of craft it into a little tiny cottage industry for yourself. And I think it's a perfectly valid approach. It's not really what I'm trying to do on YouTube. I'm really doing like you said. I'm just using YouTube as a crutch to enforce some discipline on my animation work, really, and then create content that's essentially what I could not find when I looked for it. Right? Yeah, you're saying you're saying that I think that's a compliment. Am I reading that right? That you're saying that this show will probably be able to find some audience, and if that's what you're saying, I think you're right. I mean, and that's what I was saying about when I was talking about doing the pencil test, is that there's a threshold I crossed where I realized, for my own personal, fairly critical judgment, I said to myself, yes, this show is good. It's going to be good. It's not necessarily great. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it's good. And within the genre and the audience that it's aimed at, it's adequate for that marketplace. And it took a while of wrangling around and, again, messing with all the different software before I personally crossed the point where for me, it passed that threshold where I said, yes, I'm confident this is going to be good enough that can be something I'm going to be proud of, and I'm definitely going to finish it and get it out there because I think it's good. You'd be surprised how long I worked on this before I reached that point. Okay, I was just saying in general. Okay, well, fine. Thank you very much. The influential people are easier to access than those people. Yeah, I mean, what have you got? You've got platforms, networks, and distributors. That's what you've got. Platform, networks, and distributors. If you deal with distributors, they're going to get you on the platforms. In some cases, they're going to try to get you to the networks. But as far as getting content on a second-tier network, if I wanted to do that, first of all, let's say if we're going to talk about cartoons, not any other kind of content, but cartoons specifically. For me, it's absolutely essential that this show be finished before I would ever talk to a network. Because I would not feel good telling you that I want to create a show to be on your second-tier cable network if I haven't already proven that I can completely finish a show. And, by the way, in the process of doing that, I'm also able to give you a pretty good picture of what the cost per show is going to be, exactly how long it's going to take to do, yada, yada, yada. If I can't tell you all that stuff, I don't feel comfortable pitching you on a show. And if somebody pitched something to me, I would be like, okay, this is what I was saying the other day. If you pitch me on a concept, the bad news for people on YouTube that want to create little toy animations is that concepts are a dime a dozen. Literally, concepts are a dime a dozen. Ideas for a show, ideas for a concept, utterly worthless. Basically. Not 100% worthless, but pretty much worthless. Just because I can come up with a concept in 15 minutes. I promise you, I could come up with an original concept for a show. It's going to be derivative of some other things that are out there because I'm going to aim at a genre. But coming up with a concept is nothing. That's easy. That's not execution. Execution is, okay, can you write the script and finish it? Execution is, can you do the character design? Execution is, can you finish your show? The stupidest thing I've done on this thing is make it a double-length episode, because if I hadn't done that, I would actually be close to having something I could deliver at this point. So, but that was just a choice I made, and I'm going to stick with it for the moment. You know, I may change my mind and split this into 2 episodes, but basically, where are we at? We're at 16 minutes. See, yeah, I mean, I'm at 16 minutes right now. So you realize with the shot I finished today, literally the shot I finished today, if you take that shot and were to tack onto it what I did at the end of the show, I would be done. I would have a finished 24-minute episode starting right here, because that right there is 8 minutes, and I just reached the 16-minute point. So I have finished a 24-minute episode, but the problem is it's 2 pieces of 2 episodes, so I've got to get at least 8 more minutes of this thing done before I can even consider splitting it in 2, which again I'm kind of leaning towards doing, because I know the second half is going to be quicker to do, and I think maybe I could get it out there and you know, within 60 days anyway, certainly, but maybe even in 30 days have the second episode ready to go. So anyway, yeah, well, you're correct, Amar. That's why I say they're a dime a dozen. Ideas are easy. I've never seen it happen. And it's happened with several people, where if I sit down with you, if you and I, Amar, sit down for 1 hour, 60 minutes, you and I together will absolutely, I guarantee you, pound out a really great concept for a show or a 90-minute movie. It will happen every single time. The problem with collaboration, in my experience, is that you do that, and then it turns out all the execution, actually generating a script, all the execution winds up being up to me, in my experience. So I'm very, very, very reticent to collaborate much. If you're going to collaborate on songwriting, because it's only a 4-minute property, and you can kind of have the collaboration experience, see how it goes, get in and get out. And if it goes well, then you can go back and do it again. But you want to be, I think if you're working on a show or something of this nature, you're probably better off to not collaborate at first. If you have stuff you want to farm it out. If you have to work out some special arrangement because you don't necessarily have cash to pay the people, then fine. But you probably want to maintain control the first time around, because otherwise you're going to be sitting around waiting for other people to own it. You're going to be waiting for other people to take ownership of it, and they're not going to. Either because they don't have the skill, or because they just don't feel about it the way you do. That's just reality. Right there with the ideas are easy. If all I had to do is generate ideas, yeah, okay. I know you do. You know what? Maybe one of these days we will work on something. I mean, obviously we've got this thing out there floating around with Darren T on the Futurama thing that we may get around to, but I got to get this thing done first. So, yeah, man, you got to just keep rocking. Let me ask you this before I go. I'm going to wrap it up here, but before I go, I want to ask you, what is your end game right now with what you're creating right now? What is the end game? Is it a 24-minute cartoon? Are you kind of gravitating towards instructional materials? Are you gravitating towards game assets? What's your end game? I'm gonna just wait for your answer, because I'm very curious. To be candid, I don't pay close enough attention to your channel to see where you've evolved to in terms of your target, your destination. So, game dev and comics, but you end up doing all the work. Absolutely. Once it's done and good, it gains an audience. Then they want to be on board. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that I've never had that really happen to me. The closest I'd come to that would be just to say that the end game is to find an audience and create separate intellectual properties. Yeah, what I'm asking is, what type of intellectual properties? I mean, and obviously game development. I mean, mapping out a game and creating assets, that in and of itself is a perfectly valid intellectual property. And especially if you write it, if you kind of either script it or create beats where you're actually planning out the transmedia thing, so that it can be a game but also be maybe a be a comic. be a cartoon, you know, whatever. Having a transmedia vision is perfectly fine, but of course you have to have the actual properties. You know, for me, normally writing a script, I want to create a game, animation game for all 50 IPS. Okay, I thought IP was intellectual properties. Mateus, question please. Sorry about my English. How do you see the thumbs in your timeline? How do you see the thumbs in your time? Let me go back to my timeline. Are you talking about... I don't know what you're talking about. So try again with the... I understand you're struggling with your English. How do you see the thumbs in your timeline? Okay. I don't know what you mean by thumbs. You mean thumbnails? Do you mean this in Vegas? You mean this? That's a lot of intellectual properties, dude. Anybody who says to me they want to create 50 intellectual properties, I say, okay, create one. That's what I say. Okay. Yeah, it's Vegas. It's Vegas. So the thumbnails are just always there with video tracks. And I just use Vegas because I've been using Vegas for 20 years. So there goes Valerie. I'm going to go hang out with Valerie now. So, guys, I'm going to hang up and stop streaming. It's been a good couple hours here. So thanks for hanging in there. I got my 2 shots done. I'm feeling good. And we will, as you know, there will be more later. All right? Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you again, probably tomorrow, actually. Okay, see you, man.